from the Washington, D.C. area. It's the Inside Scoop, all the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Welcome to Inside Scoop Virginia. I'm Bettina Lawton, your host. We have all read or heard about issues involving law enforcement in minority communities. In 2014, Eric Gardner in Staten Island, Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, and 12-year-old Tamir Rice in Cleveland, Ohio, all died as a result of police actions. In 2015, police killed an 18-year-old at the demonstration that was commemorating the death of Michael Brown. And in Baltimore that same year, 25-year-old Freddie Gray died of traumatic spinal cord injuries suffered while in the custody of the police. And in 2015, a 15-year-old African-American teenager at a pool party in McKinley, Texas, was assaulted by a police officer who then drew his weapon when other teenagers tried to come to her assistance. Riots erupted in Ferguson and Baltimore, and protests occurred in other major cities and around the country. In Northern Virginia, the most well-known recent officer-involved instances included the shooting of Salvador Calusi in 2006, David Masters in 2009, and John Gear in 2013, and there have been others. The Calusi and Gear killings resulted in multi-million-dollar settlements by the Fairfax County with the families. In the first part of our program tonight, we're going to talk about what the African American community and law enforcement are doing to improve relationships and prevent these types of incidents in the future. With us is Shirley Ginwright. She is a longtime civil rights activist, and she is from Montgomery, Alabama, where she participated in the civil rights movement and marched with the late Reverend Martin Luther King in the march from Selma to Montgomery. She has degrees in legal studies and is working on her master's in criminal justice. Shirley chairs the Fairfax County Communities of Trust Committee and is a member of the Fairfax County Police Chief Diversity Recruitment Committee and Executive Diversity Committee, and the Ad Hoc Police Practices Review Commission that was set up earlier this year by the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors. Ms. Ginwright chairs the subcommittee on police recruiting, diversity, and vetting of that Ad Hoc Commission. She also chairs the Criminal Justice Committee of the Virginia State Conference of the NAACP, and she is the president of the Fairfax County NAACP. This is a return engagement, and thank you so much for coming back, Shirley.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And also with us for his very first time is Colonel Edwin C. Roessler, Jr. He is the Chief of Police for Fairfax County. Chief Roessler began his legal enforcement career with the New York City Department of Investigation before joining the Fairfax County Police Department as a patrol officer. He has served in every rank in the department. Prior senior command assignments have included the Internal Affairs Bureau, directing the Criminal Justice Academy, managing the department's budget and human resources, and leading a patrol bureau division that included animal services, the crime analysis unit, and the construction of the Sully District Station. Chief Roessler also served as both a supervisor and commander of the Civil Disobedience Unit. Chief Roessler received his undergraduate degree from Arizona State University and his graduate degree from George Washington University. And during his career, he has also graduated from a variety of professional development programs, including the Federal Bureau of Investigation, National Executive Institute and National Academy, American University's Key Executive Graduate Program, and the United States Military Academy at West Point's Leadership Program, and Leadership Fairfax. I'm about to run out of your qualifications, or leaving me breathless, Chief Roessler. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
I appreciate you both coming in to talk about what everybody keeps talking about. And it's something that you've actually been working on for a while. So I want to know, first of all, what is this Community of Trust Committee? And you chair it, right?
That is correct.
So how did it get started? Who set it up?
Well, in December 2014,
Okay.
shortly after the incident in Ferguson, I made a call to the chief and asked him if he and I could meet to talk about what we needed to do in Fairfax to ensure nothing like that happened in Fairfax.
There's a lot of concern. I remember that
it was,
at the time.
Yeah. So the chief suggested that we discuss this with Chairman Bolivar, the sheriff, as well as the fire chief. Mm-hmm. And we had that meeting, and as a result, on December 18th, Chairman Bolivar decided she was going to establish a committee to look at how the law enforcement and first responders interacted with the community and how we improve those relationships. And it was during this time that she asked if I would chair that. At the time, the president had come out with a task force, and there was a booklet on building communities of trust. And we didn't want to use the term building communities of trust, but we thought communities of trust would be a great name for this committee.
Okay.
So that's how it began with the chief.
Right.
Okay, so the chief, you're on the committee. Do you yourself on it, or do you have a representative who attends? How does that work?
I sit on the committee, and I have two primary representatives. One is our volunteer coordinator, Lieutenant Mark Mitchell, and then the commander of my Planning and Research Bureau, Captain Dean Lay. Between Captain Lay and Lieutenant Mitchell, they have the outreach to all our volunteer programs in the community and great access to drive our strategic initiatives.
Okay, and so then did the sheriff end up with somebody, and also then the fire as well? So
Yes,
it's all public
actually,
safety.
It's not all public safety. We have the fire department has 2 representatives. The police department has several. The sheriff department has 3 representatives. Then the state patrol heard
so
about
the state police are
the
involved
state
too?
police are very much involved now. They heard about the committee and called and wanted to know if they could participate. So we have said, of course. But we have a very diverse group. There are local leaders that's involved, including we have NAACP that represent the Korean Asian community.
Okay.
We have the voice of Vietnamese Americans that's around the table. And the thought is we can't address issues if we don't have people around the table that represent those communities. So what we tried to do to ensure that we had somebody from each of those communities. We have someone from the Muslim community, the Jewish community, and their task as a member of the committee is to bring to us issues within their communities, and then we discuss to figure out how do we address those issues.
So is there a standard way that the people are supposed to go out and find out what their issues are in the community? Did they have public hearings? How did that process work? Or are they just so involved day to day in their communities that they're all?
Most of them are very involved in their communities. Like in the Korean community with NAACP, they are in the process of getting us a meeting with some of their Korean leaders. So we will go talk to them, explain to them what the communities of trust is, and then they can help us within those communities. Same as with the Vietnamese communities, provide interpreters for us, for those who are unable to understand what it is that we're saying. You know,
Okay.
so that's very important. And we wanted to go into the communities. We didn't want them trying to come to us.
So are you having hearings around when you say you're going into the community? What's your outreach from this committee like?
We have had several forums at faith locations, and our outreach is to have dialogue, engage with the community to understand their perceptions of law enforcement and public safety in general, and to dialogue together to understand what Fairfax County Police does in particular, what services we deliver, what our policies are, and to talk about issues both nationally and locally so we could have an understanding. When I look back, when I became chief, I started a Chiefs Diversity Council on recruitment, and Shirley and others in the same format joined that committee. And we developed a strategic plan, and we initially focused on just hiring sworn police officers to reflect the community that we serve in Fairfax County, because it's a very diverse community and we need to do a better job in diversifying the sworn ranks. And then as we started to engage and have discussion, we realized we have volunteer opportunities, we have civilian employment, and the volunteer opportunities at the local district stations, which we have 8, we have citizen advisory councils as one example. And to diversify those councils, to get different members of the community to come and talk with their local district command to understand what it is that we do, to break down the perceptions, because many of our new community members are from other countries around the world, and their view of, or reality of what law enforcement is based upon their country, which quite frankly is a corrupt, oppressive military arm law enforcement, which take people away, take their goods, and we're trying to break down those barriers and engage and allow ownership of their police department. And that's the goal also with the communities of trust. I got the phone call from Shirley while I was shopping at a BJ's in Fair Lakes on a Friday evening, and Shirley said we cannot have Ferguson occur in Fairfax County. And that dialogue, we decided we need to do the alphabet continuum of agencies from A through Z, L being law enforcement. It's all the services in Fairfax County getting together with community stakeholders to be a better county. We are the safest jurisdiction of our size in the United States. We're about 32nd largest police department in the United States. We serve over 1.1 million people within 400 square miles, and we have the lowest crime rate. We have the highest education levels, obviously a high per capita income. So we do have an engaged community, and part of our vision statement as a police department is to engage with the community to prevent and fight crime, increase the culture of safety, preserve the sanctity of life, and to keep pace with urbanization. So the communities of trust is necessary not only for specific issues, but for the growth of our services and agency.
Well, you really came in because you've only been chief, I guess, July 30th, 2013. Right?
Correct.
So just a little over 2 years. You really came in right when it started getting really hot with a lot of these things happening. So how are you in terms of what kind of reception are you getting in the communities when you're going out and meeting with them? Because you're right, a lot of folks are coming in from areas and countries where they don't trust the police at all. How difficult is it to overcome that?
Well, looking around the country at my peers, the biggest element for a chief or a sheriff is to get out into the community and have that tough dialogue, because the perceptions of law enforcement throughout the country, the national dialogue and locally, the reality versus the perception is hard to overcome. So people bring their perceptions, which is reality, from other places or one bad interaction or something on the news, and we need to dialogue about what the Fairfax County Police Department is and what it can be, what our blind spots are, and that's the dialogue we have. So it's not just going to a meeting and talking, it's allowing the district commanders and other elements of the agency to come and then build programs after I leave that dialogue.
Okay. Well, we are going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and continue this conversation with Chief Ed Roessler and Shirley Ginwright about the communities of trust and other initiatives in Fairfax County to reach out between law enforcement.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. Well, it's some matches and that's no good. Listen to smoke before you give it a try.
Only you.
Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about ripped off money. Nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Why don't you just wash your car at home?
When I wash my car, everything runs down the street and down into the storm drains. With all the chemicals in the soaps and waxes, the last thing I want to do is poison my own drinking water.
At least here, it's all contained and recycled on site.
That's why I also take my car in for oil changes instead of doing it myself. I might take a chance on spilling stuff.
You know what the best part is?
What?
More time to kick back and watch the game.
How far would you go to protect the planet?
I want you to build an ark.
Here we go. Okay, that's good. Oh, okay. Ow! Oh!
Maybe there's another way.
People, the flood is imminent!
Is it too much to ask for a little precipitation?
Go to fightglobalwarming.com to find out what you and your community can do to reduce global warming pollution.
Somewhere around the world, there are men and women of the armed forces risking their lives, helping rebuild communities after natural disasters, collecting toys for needy children, tutoring kids in school. These are your sons and daughters who work to keep us safe, secure, and free. Dedicated men and women who put their country first.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back. I'm Bettina Lawton, and I'm your host. And I have with me Shirley Ginwright. She is the chair of a lot of things, but tonight we're talking about communities of trust. And also we have Chief Ed Roessler of the Fairfax County Police Department. And when we left, we were talking about outreach and getting out into the community. And I know you have a lot of programs right now, Chief, where you're reaching out. And one of them, I saw the name of it, and I thought, boy, it's really cute. I wonder what it is. So I'm going to ask you, what is a road dog?
Road Dog is a camp that was created many years ago. One of the creators of that is Major Jack Herlock and other staff. But Jack was a great champion, and what he envisioned was taking at-risk kids in the community that were recommended to us that just needed some extra coaching and mentoring, and we would go out of the county and have a leadership camp and team building and mentoring and coaching, and it would be led by police officers. So the kids would see police officers in a totally different role of coach and mentor and friend. And it built relationships, and it's met with great success for a long time. And as part of the Communities of Trust, we are looking at Road Dog Camp as a model to hopefully have a public safety camp where we involve not only police but fire and sheriff and some faith-based community to have a week-long leadership camp for children throughout the entire county to interact with public safety officers and sheriffs to learn that public safety is a noble profession and it's a calling in life, and that we care about our young members of the community because they will be running our community in the future.
Yeah, that's what we have to keep remembering. Those are the people who are going to be the leaders of tomorrow. So now you have police academies. I know you have a civilian police academy and you've got like a teen academy. What kind of outreach do you have? Are these people training to do police-related activities, these academy-type things? What are those things about?
This is for the community to understand what their police department does, from administration to operations, and they tour different facilities. We start off at our academy to learn about how we recruit, hire, and train, and then we go to different facilities to learn about the operations, and one of those facilities includes the jail and the courts. So you get a real quick glimpse of what it's like behind the badge. And obviously our Citizen Police Academy is for adults, and then we have a Teen Police Academy, which is the same syllabus. And we also have a Women's Leadership one-week camp that we partner with the schools, and we hold that at school headquarters. This is our second year of hosting that, and we have an Explorer program, which is part of scouting. Until a year ago, we only had one Explorer post that met centrally at police headquarters or out in Chantilly at the academy. And we were having orientation meetings, and the diversity was incredible from throughout the county. So Captain Sean Martin, who's commander of the Mount Vernon District Station, took it upon himself with staff and created a second Explorer post in Alexandria. And I'm happy to announce that we now have a third Explorer post that will cover Annandale, Culmore, and parts of McLean and West Springfield that will open up in a few weeks. So we will have 3 Explorer posts, and the diversity is just incredible. The young kids in the program are recruited through the school systems and other avenues of our communities of trust, and it's overflowing. And our aim is to make productive community members. You don't necessarily need to say, I want to be a police officer. It's a leadership opportunity, and it provides structure, and we are grateful that we have great support from parents.
Oh, that is terrific. I'm
If
glad
I
to
can
hear about
add
that.
also, when we started looking at the different programs in the Communities of Trust, the fire department as well as the sheriff department had programs similar to what the police department had. So we looked at those programs and say, okay, you're competing for resources. There's some duplications in other areas. So we looked at how can we combine some and how can we enhance. So the Civilian Police Academy, I attended that, was a 10-week program on Thursday night. So we talked about we probably could expand more if we reduced the size of it or the amount of time required. So we're looking at what if we had an intermediate program or introductory one that we could present to homeowners associations, and then an intermediate one, and then the full-blown, which is the 10-week one.
Right.
But that would allow us to go into the community and let all of the departments, all of the public safety departments, talk about what it is that they do. So we have committees now that we established during our last meeting, which was last week, and they have actually tasked to go about how do we implement this now that the recommendations have been approved. How do we get this done?
Well, let's talk about some of those recommendations, because I know you're working on a foundation,
Yes.
a 501c3, I'm assuming.
That is correct.
Okay, and so what's the purpose of the foundation going to be?
Well, one of the things that we have found is that no one has the resources, people nor money, to implement some of these programs and to spread them around the county. So the 501c3 program would help us to accumulate funds to support these programs and to expand them throughout Fairfax County, like the Road Dog program, and Road Dog program is look more toward at-risk kids. But we wanted to relook the name of that because we don't want to stereotype kids.
Right.
And so, but we're still looking to expand that. And that's one of the things that the foundation will be looking at. There are a lot of programs that have already been established where we don't have to reinvent. But if they had money from the foundation, then maybe we could give it to another 501c3 program to enhance the program that's already in place. So we're not looking to try to duplicate something, but to enhance it so we can educate more on public safety. And like I said, make Fairfax County a better place to live or a safer place to live. And the focus really is on our youth.
So what are the other recommendations that the Community of Trust Committee has come up with? You've said they've all been approved, so tell us some.
Well, to establish a public safety academy, and what we're doing is in the school they have an ROTC program. So the discussion was, why couldn't we have a public safety academy, same as an ROTC program in the schools? Yes. So that's a discussion we're going to have with the school board.
Yes, you will.
Because we haven't had that. We have not had that discussion.
You better hope your foundation raises a lot of money because the school system keeps saying they don't have any.
And that's right. And that's one of the purposes of the foundation. So if we can establish that, then we can have the different agencies, the fire department, say, okay, there are some general courses that, like when you start college, you have your generic courses, and then you branch off into your field of study.
Right.
And we can say that in the academy we can do the same thing. Here are some things that are generic across all three of the agencies. And then now I want to be a fireman, so you branch off to the fireman module, and same as with the police and the sheriff.
Okay.
So we want to do that. And we want to look at including public safety in our civic classes in school.
Because it's not covered in the school now.
It is not. It is not.
The only thing I know about the police in school is this, student resource officers?
Right.
Is that what they're called?
Exactly.
School resource officers?
Right.
So what would you teach them in school? I mean, what kind of, you're looking at a full curriculum or just part of a civic class?
Part of a civic class, I would think.
There's already some criminal justice curriculum in some of the schools, and building upon that into the civics areas to understand the role of policing in the United States, the role of policing in Fairfax County, what our mission is, and look at some of the issues historically of how police have evolved, but to allow the students to understand how they could take ownership of their police department by engagement.
Well, you could have some great field trips if you were taking this in a civics class,
Right.
because you've got some facilities that they can come and visit.
That is correct, right.
Really keep their interest in it, which could also help your recruiting down the line, I would
Correct.
think.
And that's the objective, so they can become more familiar what the law enforcement does. And they can say, yes, I would like to become one.
You have some upcoming events through your community of trust.
Yes,
don't you have some
yes,
things?
yes.
I heard you're doing school-related things.
On September 2nd, there's going to be a back-to-school haircutting event in the Gum Springs area, and where there'll be face painting. And We have some public safety vehicles there. All of the departments are participating, to include the Virginia State Police. And on September 3rd, we have backpack stuffing. So we're going to be stuffing 2,000 backpacks that we will be giving around the county to students. And these are actually given to different nonprofit organizations and to schools. They will pick the backpacks up after we stuff them. Okay. And then on October 30th, we will be distributing 2,500 new coats in the same manner as the backpacks would be distributed. And this is a program that has always been done by the fire department, but now with the combined effort under the Communities of Trust, all of the departments are actively involved now, which is a good thing.
That's excellent.
Excellent,
That's
yes.
excellent. Well, let me ask you one other thing, and I know you're not here as the president of the NAACP, but I do know you've got a Freedom Fund Award banquet coming up, don't you?
That is correct, yes.
On September 19th, it's in Springfield in the afternoon.
It's at the Waterford in Springfield from 1 to 5 p.m. From 1 to 2, there's like a networking session. At 2 o'clock, the program actually begins. And our theme is Your Vote, Your Power. And our guest speaker is Mr. Eric Broyles. He's the co-author of a book called Encounters with Police, A Black Man's Guide to Survival.
Wow, and where can someone go if they want to come to this? Is there a website?
You can visit our website at www.fairfaxcounty.org, and you can purchase your tickets online. And we still have seats available, so we hope to see you there.
All right, well, good. Well, I will be there, so I look forward to seeing you there. I think we've got like maybe a minute left, which means we really have like 30 seconds. Chief, when is the ad hoc committee police practices commission report due?
Their report is due to the Board of Supervisors October 1st. Their subcommittees are already in the process of finalizing their recommendations to the chair of the ad hoc commission, and upon the board receiving it, they will review it with me, and we will then move forward with the recommendations. I can tell you, through our efforts with national accreditation and the Police Executive Research Forum's report on our use of force policies and practices, we are already, as an agency, moving ahead with many recommendations which will coincide with the ad hoc commission.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to seeing that. Maybe we'll get you back on to talk about that when it comes out. I want to thank you for coming back, Shirley, and talking with us about this. I know, Ed, you're going to stay with us for the next bunch of segments. We're doing a lot in Fairfax to make this a great place to live and to have people understand our law enforcement professionals. So stay with us.
This year, 28,000 Americans will be diagnosed with oral cancer. Every year, 7,000 Americans die of oral cancer.
I'm Eva Cohen, and I'm an oral cancer survivor. I didn't fit the profile. I didn't smoke or drink. I had no family history of cancer. I was 31 years old. I went to see my dentist about a sore in my mouth that wouldn't heal. It was oral cancer. I had to have a radical neck dissection and a portion of my tongue reconstructed. I didn't know if I was going to live or die.
I'm Surgeon General Richard Carmona. The survival rate for oral cancer is only 50%. Oral cancer can happen to anyone. If you have a sore or lesion in your mouth that doesn't heal within 2 weeks, see your dentist. Early detection is the key.
Early detection saves lives. I know.
1 in 8 Americans goes hungry. One idea helped change that. A community started a garden that blossomed into farmers markets. 1 in 6 children lives in poverty. One group of women found an answer by opening a daycare center that their neighbors could afford. Today, 36 million Americans live in poverty, but one by one, people are helping themselves and each other to change the picture of poverty to one of hope. For easy ways you can help, visit povertyusa.org.
2 words for you. Pop quiz. Ready? Name any funny movie. A drama. Name a mystery. And one more thing. Name the movie your kids saw today in science class.
Know what really matters. Know about your kid's school. and know about your kid. Find out 100 ways to know more, do more.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back. I'm Bettina Lawton, and I'm your host. This is Inside Scoop Virginia, and we're switching communities now. We welcome Chief Roessler's continued participation in the program, and we are joined by Robert J. Marro. He is the trustee of the All Dulles Area Muslim Society Center in Sterling, Virginia. Mr. Marro's career is in the international development arena. He was with the United States Department of State, where he was assigned to the U.S. Embassy in Malaysia as Vice Consul and Commercial Officer. He transferred to the U.S. Foreign Commercial Service. He went to the U.S. Embassy in London as Director of the U.S. International Marketing Center, and then to Singapore as Commercial Attaché, to Paris as Commercial Counselor, and to Ottawa as Minister Counselor in charge of all activities with the U.S.'s largest trading partner, which is, of course, Canada. He, returning to the United States, he trained U.S. Commerce Department trade specialists on export development, and he was then assigned to Washington to manage all of the U.S. commercial operations throughout Africa and the Near East and South Asia. And in recognition of his strong innovative skills, Mr. Marro was then asked to create a commercial service institute to offer in-person and online training for all American and foreign national staff of the U.S. Commercial Service. Mr. Marro is currently a private consultant on international finance, business development, and project management, focused on the Middle East and Asia. His strong knowledge of the history and cultures of the Middle East and Islamic world has made him a sought-after speaker on Islam and the West. Mr. Marro did a BA in International Relations at Johns Hopkins University and MBA Studies in Marketing at Rutgers University Graduate School of Business Management. So I want to thank you for coming. Now let me ask you something, because so people won't think I'm enormously rude. I asked you before if I could ask you this on camera, and that is that you don't appear like what people think of a Muslim man. So have you always been Muslim?
No.
This okay?
No, it was when I was in Malaysia at the embassy there that I had a lot of knowledge about Islam from studies and comparative religion. You know, it was something that growing up as a Christian, the dogma, the principles were very similar. But there was just something about when I got there and seeing the actual practice of Islam, being surrounded by Muslims, it was something that touched my heart a little bit more than anything else. So I thought this is the right path for me and the right road for me to travel.
Okay, excellent. Well, this year we've been seeing sort of this upwelling of anti-Muslim rhetoric again. We had the unfortunate shootings in the magazine in France, and of course we've got the whole Islamic State thing, which seems to be riling everybody up, not unexpectedly, with the beheadings and all the other allegations of criminal conduct and things like that. There's been there were the 3 Muslim students who were killed down in Chapel Hill. There was a fellow who was attacked in a grocery store in Michigan. There was all of that controversy down in Texas with anti-Muslim demonstrations and people being attacked, and Islamic institutes being set fire to. I mean, this is a tough year for Muslims. Is this, how do you do this? How do you respond to that? You're in the Adams Center, so tell us what the Adams Center is, first of all.
Well, first of all, Adams Center stands for the All Dulles Area Muslim Society. It was started in the early 1980s by a group of families who had come here. Several of them had come to study, stayed on, working in the United States. They would get together to pray on Fridays, to have the various Eid celebrations, celebrate with their families, but they were doing it in the basement of someone's home. As the community got bigger, they needed a place to really expand out, so they took office space in Herndon, and they outgrew that and went to another office space. And then in the early 2000s, we broke ground and actually built a center in Sterling, which is actually right on the border. Half of the center is in Fairfax, the other half is in Loudon.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I always thought it was Loudon.
It made it very interesting because we had to get double permits for everything that we do from both counties.
Well, that has to be just horrible, because I understand permitting from one county is enough of a task.
True, but The upside is that because of that co-location, we have very good ties with both Fairfax and Loudoun County elected officials and law enforcement, with everybody. So,
it's very strategic on your part.
Yeah, we straddle both sides.
Very good, very good. Well, how big is the community now? Because I've been to the Adams Center, and it's very big.
Yeah. We reckon that we serve about 7,000 to 8,000 families. On a typical Friday, we have 24 prayer services in locations going all the way from Washington, D.C. to Gainesville and everything in between. For our Eid prayers, Eid is sort of the equivalent of like Christmas or Easter.
Okay.
So this is when people who don't come out, they can't come out and pray, attend services every Friday, they will make a definite effort. I think probably a 98% participation for Eid. So we reckon that we have, when we tot up all the ones, we have to rent multiple locations. We think that there's something like 26,000 people who come to the services. And that's just in this area. And Adams is the largest Muslim congregation in Virginia, one of the largest in the United States.
Okay, so now what's the difference? This shows you my ignorance of your community. So you have the Adams Center and you do prayers and you do all of that there, but then there are mosques. So
yeah.
The Adams Center is not a mosque.
Well, the Adams Center is a mosque.
It is a mosque.
But the way it was built, it was deliberately configured as a community center.
Okay.
So that on our Fridays when we have the prayer services, the area that we have is a basketball court, badminton court, community center. We lay down carpets and that becomes the prayer hall. Okay. And when the carpets are down, that is only reserved for prayer hall. And every Friday, especially like right now, we welcome all the political candidates who want to come out and meet the community. And it has two sides of the coin. First of all, it gives our community the chance to meet and to informally interact with political officials, candidates, law enforcement officials, and others, and really get to know who they are and what they're all about. At the same time, it gives these officials access to the community, because we tell them, look, when you're coming for the service, there's about a 30-minute sermon on various topics to do with life. And we say, come listen to the sermon and hear what we have to say. Because sometimes, if you listen to people who are attacking the community, they will say that mosques are a hotbed of radicalism.
That's right.
Come to the sermon and you will hear. Stop in anytime. Even anyone who wants to come in and attend our services, we're welcoming them. You'll sit in the back. You're not going to sit and stand with everybody who's praying, but you can sit in the back and listen to what what we call the imam is saying during the sermon. And I think we've had so many officials say, I never expected that. It's just the most uplifting and inspiring words that we've heard. And it's telling people lessons of how to live your life. If there were ever an occasion that people started talking about violence and extremism, in the Adams Center in particular, this would never work. No one would tolerate it. Now, that's not to say that there are not mosques in other places in the world where such things can happen. They do happen. But here in the United States, it's an anomaly. Here in Sterling, it's almost an impossibility. You would not hear that. If a person ever went down that path, that would be the last time that they would ever give a sermon in any of our prayer centers.
Now, who's eligible to give sermons? Is it just the imam, or
no.
is it?
An imam in Islam, there are no priests. An imam is simply a leader, a teacher. Right. There are people who study and who memorize the Quran, who study Islamic jurisprudence, and they're generally the imam for the mosque. We have two. But on a Friday, we have 24, 25 different services. So each one will have a different imam or leader. Anyone from the community, I've done it myself, and anyone from the community who is sort of qualified to give the message and can stand up in front of a crowd of people and keep them from falling asleep for 30 minutes. That's pretty much the qualifications. But we take it very seriously, and we want to make sure that the message that they're giving is something which goes along with the message that Adams as a whole, as an organization, wants to spread. And it's got to be a message of moderation. It's got to be, something all-inclusive. We will not tolerate someone attacking another community. We will not tolerate someone saying that we're superior in any way to anyone else. It has to be religiously based, and it has to be according to the precepts of the Quran. The topic pretty much is the subject of the individual imam, but within those basic guidelines.
Okay. Now, you have a lot of activity. I went to the breaking of the fast in Ramadan out of the Adams, and an individual spoke and was talking about the work that the Adams Center does with a lot of the interfaith community. So what is your all involvement in that? Because you seem to have a whole lot of stuff that you're doing with a lot of different denominations.
And it's curious, as I said, we're from Washington to Gainesville. We have 2 locations that are co-located in synagogues, in Reston and in Ashburn. We share space. And on Friday afternoon, we will have our prayers at noontime. Friday night, the Jewish congregation will have their services, their Shabbat services, in that same location. In Washington, D.C., we are in the Episcopal Church on G Street and 13th in Northwest. So we come in and you're in the church, but for that period of time, it's a Muslim ceremony. And we really made an effort to try to reach out and to get as many interfaith partnerships going as possible. So we've got great relationships with the Jewish community, with the Christian community, but not only that, we've also got with the Baha'i community and the Jain and the Hindu and Pakistani Christians. Several years ago, some lunatics in Pakistan took it into their head they were going to burn down some Christian churches that they thought, this is something that God wants us to do. I don't know who they were listening to, but certainly not the God that I worship. We worked with some Pakistani. It was an initiative started here, and we approached some of the Pakistani Christian community here and said, look, we want to help you out. Let us do a fundraiser. And we raised, I think, $40,000 to help rebuild the churches. We've had very close ties with other Christian communities. A couple of months ago, the Orthodox Archbishop of Jerusalem came over to Adams. We had a program, he met all of our leadership. We went down, he attended one of our prayer services, spoke at the end of the prayer service, talked about what he's doing in Jerusalem. We've had people, just a couple of weeks ago, a group, there were 2 people. One is a former Palestinian, and he was a former activist for Palestine, violent activist, actually spent some time in prison. He is now pushing for a peaceful resolution. His partner in this effort is a Jewish rabbi who is a settler and came from the settler group that is so dead opposed to any kind of like 2-state solution. They're going around now and they're talking to people about, look, this is not a sustainable situation. We really have to have a dialogue between our communities because neither one understands who and what the others are. So we've hosted those things. Our main imam, Muhammad Majid, chairs the Fairfax Action Committee. It was an interfaith group that it's faith in action, and it's a way of getting the faith communities involved in county initiatives.
Wow. Well, this is definitely interesting because it's not at all what I would expect at all. So stay with us because we're going to come back and we're going to talk some more and we're going to talk about the relationships with law enforcement.
I need a job.
Necesito trabajo. I would like to speak English better. Me gustaría hablar inglés mejor.
I want to be a U.S. citizen.
Quisiera ser ciudadano de los Estados Unidos.
For over 35 years,
Por más de 35 años,
the Hispanic Committee of Virginia has been serving our community.
el Comité Hispano de Virginia ha estado sirviendo a nuestra comunidad.
Job training and placement,
Capacitación, ayuda para conseguir trabajo,
education for children and adults,
educación para niños y adultos,
immigration, naturalization, and medical referrals.
ayuda para los procesos de inmigración y naturalización y orientación sobre médicos
Are a small part of what we do.
son solo una pequeña parte de lo que hacemos.
For help, information, or to volunteer,
Para ayuda, información o para ofrecerse como voluntario,
contact the Hispanic Committee of Virginia,
comuníquese con el Comité Hispano de Virginia,
helping everyone participate more fully in American society.
ayudando a todos a participar plenamente en la sociedad norteamericana.
Hey, Lena, where's yours?
Would you notice if you were missing half your kidney function? According to the National Kidney Foundation,
20 million people have chronic kidney disease, and 20 million more may be at risk and not even know it. Anyone with high blood pressure, diabetes, or family history of chronic kidney disease is at risk. Early diagnosis is vitally important. To get the whole story, talk to your doctor and visit the National Kidney Foundation at kidney.org or call for a free brochure. Because when it comes to chronic kidney disease, you might not know the half.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back. I'm Bettina Lawton, and I'm your host. This is Inside Scoop Virginia, and we are talking about law enforcement and the relationships with various communities, and at the moment we're talking about the Muslim community. We have Bob Marro. He is a trustee of the Adams Center in Sterling, Virginia, and Chief Ed Roessler of the Fairfax County Police Department. So I want to turn to the relationships that the Adams Center has with the police, because certainly in this area after 9/11 it got very, very tense. I saw a study that was done in 2005 by the American Civil Liberties Union that talked about the Department of Justice operating behind a wall of secrecy and thrusting scores of Muslim men into this Kafir-esque existence because they were bringing them in under material witness warrants, even though there was no case and they never actually testified. And eventually, months and in some cases years later, they were finally released from prison. And that's a hard thing to come back from. The things that were going on immediately after, with the fear that the attacks of 9/11 had, particularly in this area with the Pentagon being hit, but also we're not that far from New York. How have you repaired those relationships? I know in the first couple segments, Chief, we were talking about outreach in the communities in Fairfax. What kind of outreach does the Fairfax County Police Department do to the Muslim community?
I'll talk from my personal experience. Prior to 9/11, I had the fortunate opportunity to be the assistant commander in the Mason District Station, and we had a great relationship with the mosque in Falls Church, and that was just part of our daily operations to serve the community. It's no different than any other community. And for example, Friday services would create parking issues in the community. It's a residential parking permit zone. So the easiest thing was to dialogue with the leaders of the mosque, and we worked it out over a couple of weeks to get compliance for parking. It was no big deal. It was just like any other community. Later on in my career, I was commander of the Reston District Station prior to 9/11, and the Adams Center already had great outreach with us. The outreach was two ways, but the Adams Center was great. And when 9/11 happened, as commander of the station, leadership from the Adams Center came to me. We had picnics with the officers, and we knew right away that we had to understand that we're all part of the fabric of the community. And as mentioned earlier, I could verify everything this man said, because it was just great. It continues today. There was a mosque being built out in Centerville, and under the construction, it was vandalized. And we have a bias crime coordinator that specifically looks at bias issues, faith-based destructions, etc. And the commander at that time immediately already knew that there was outreach and was able to contact the leadership at the Adams Center, and we determined that it was just a bunch of kids that were out drinking. They had no idea it was a mosque under construction. So I could tell you for a fact that the relationship is terrific. We don't have much repair to do from 9/11, in my opinion. What we need to do is to get rid of the perceptions that are built nationally, locally here. And as mentioned earlier, the communities of trust and our outreach programs with kids. And the Adams Center has been just terrific hosting us and working us both ways. So the focus on both parents and the youth in the community, that it's their police department. The same thing with Loudoun County, I know that too, with the sheriff. So the relationship is just tremendous, and I wish other parts of the community in Fairfax could look at the Adams Center and see the terrific outreach, and that's what we're trying to strive for in other elements.
Well, that's a ringing endorsement.
Yes, and I think it's a two-way street, and by way of background, most of the people who are part of the Adams community were born someplace else. Many of them came from countries where the police were frankly not well trusted. And they were people that, you know, corruption was high, they were secret police, there were secret disappearances. So when they arrive, they have to overcome a little bit of that baggage. So we took a view from the very outset that, look, we've got to build those relationships and we've got to build that trust. And the best way to do is to have visibility. So as far back as 1999, we started running annual programs. We would honor law enforcement and first responders. After 9/11, it became even more cogent. And we would, every September, since then, we invite our community and we invite people from Loudoun, Fairfax, you know, the first responders, fire brigades, the police services, and we honor them. We have them come here. They speak to the community. They have an opportunity to mingle with the community, break bread together, and just to do these things so that we can build that level of trust. And I think on a local level, we really don't have very many issues. I think probably the biggest issues are things like parking, or people getting, you know, stops for speeding. But that's, you know, whatever community. Yeah. We do have more on the national level, because, as you said, some of those the secret the detentions. Right. There was an incident here where the FBI had raided some people from our community as part of the investigation into some funding for terrorist organizations. And, you know, unfortunately, because of that, there is a bit of a legacy. Some of these people, to this day, I mean, they were exhaustively investigated. They had all their computer records, all their homes were gone through with fine-tooth combs. They were never charged with anything. Right. And to this day, some of these people, when they go to the airport, they get pulled aside for routine questioning or random questioning. But when every time you go to the airport, you're getting pulled over, it seems less random.
Yeah, it's not random.
Even that, we've been developing close relations with the national level, with the FBI, with the Washington Field Office. We've got excellent ties with them. We helped set up what we call the Arab Muslim Sikh Advisory Committee. We meet on a regular basis with the FBI and we share experiences about what's going on, what's happening in the community, to try to build that two-way communication.
Well, I did read that a lot of police training, and a lot of it was FBI type training, but I did see that the sheriff in Culpeper, I guess it was last year, was going to have a 3-day counterterrorism training by a fellow who reportedly, at least in the papers that I read, was a notorious Muslim basher. That's what he was called. Yeah. A conspiracy theorist. He thinks that the former head of the CIA is a secret Muslim. He thinks, you know, the Muslim Brotherhood has infiltrated every place. And hopefully, I saw the public uproar about it, and I'm hoping that the sheriff actually canceled that training. But what kind of training, Chief Roessler, does the Fairfax County Police Department get? Is there specific counterterrorism training? What kind of things that you get that, and how do you make sure it doesn't perpetuate stereotypes about, you know, that all the Muslims, I saw this list of stereotypes that is in the training about, you know, you have to be careful about all Muslim men are to be suspect, and, you know, and Islam is a violent religion, and all these kinds of things that are just myths and they're not really true. How do you make sure that kind of stuff doesn't creep into the training in Fairfax?
Well, first it starts with our recruit training to familiarize recruits with the diversity of Fairfax County and to understand the different diversity, what the perceptions are, what the religions are, what the culture is, and how to act, and so people are not surprised at the patrol level when they respond to someone's house or to a mosque, for example. Now, when we look at the academy, and I was an academy director, we need to always vet the syllabus when we bring an outside vendor in or internal instructors, and look at the training and to make sure that it is fair and balanced, that it's not creating a perception in the mind of the law enforcement officers. And I can tell you, way back when, we did have a vendor that post 9/11 was coming in to teach about terrorism, and we looked at the syllabus and we were not happy with the portrayal of the Muslim community, and we canceled the contract. And so having a dialogue with the community, and the academy has a board of directors where these things are challenged, and I am chair of the board of directors for the academy, so it is my responsibility for the Fairfax County Sheriff's Office and the towns of Herndon and Vienna and the Fire Marshal's Office and our guests that come from the Northern Virginia region to make sure that we vet all the vendors and the syllabuses. And we also coordinate with Northern Virginia Criminal Justice Academy and Prince William Academy to cover the entire Northern Virginia region. And we have quarterly meetings with the directors to cover this issue among many.
Oh, good. We've heard a lot about the Islamic State, and we've seen, and there was recently in the paper, some young person who got sentenced, got recruited in. What is the Adams Center doing? You've got a lot of kids up there. I mean, is this a danger that your community's having to deal with, this kind of recruitment?
It's a risk that we have to deal with. We don't really think it's a danger because it hasn't really impacted us very much. But, we're always cognizant of the fact that when you've got kids that age, especially teenagers, and if you've ever seen any of the stuff that comes out of IS, it's really slick. I mean, whoever they've got, they could make a career on Madison Avenue without any real difficulty. And they've honed this whole procedure down to make it so that they're trying to reach out to kids who are at risk, kids who are kind of floating and a little bit lost, who might otherwise like join a street gang or get a cult or something. And they try to cultivate them in a way that it makes it seem like this is something that they could and should be doing to defend their faith, to get some sense of identity. So we're trying to counter that. We've got a whole raft of different programs that we're trying to do to give them other opportunities. And it's like if you have a garden, if you have a backyard, if you leave the garden alone, don't do anything with it, it's going to be choked with weeds.
Right.
But if you go and you plant grass, you plant trees, you plant bushes, you're going to have a nice little backyard. So what we're trying to do is to accentuate the positive and give people positive things that they can do and ways that they can promote their religion, ways that they can develop a sense of identity and empowerment for good, positive things. A very robust Boy Scout program, for example. And in our Boy Scout program, it's more or less an interfaith. Our Scouts are Muslim, but we have very close relationships. We've done these little soapbox derbies.
So soapbox derbies.
And we've done it with the Jewish Scouting and with other Scout, and they've come to our places. We've gone to theirs. We're thinking about trying to set up more sports and athletic activities where we do. We'll have leagues where we play with kids from the other side. The more you get to know somebody, the less or the harder it becomes to hate them.
Right.
And the less possibility there is that something is going to go wrong. And that's why, when we really reached out to the police, we want to welcome them, we want to work with them, and to let our people know that, look, these are people here who are serving the community and here to protect all of us and our families. You may not think that way when you see the red lights behind your car, but
True.
For the most part, everything else, when you see a policeman, you can have a pretty good confidence. And we fortunately, we don't have any problems, and I think that's probably with Fairfax County, we don't have the issues of being targeted as a minority community.
Well, that is truly good news. And I want to thank you for coming, Bob.
It's a pleasure.
Your maiden voyage, you did a fine job. Chief Roessler, you as well. I appreciate you both coming and talking, and hopefully you all out there understand better about law enforcement and the real work they're doing to make everyone feel welcome in Fairfax.